Every day, people pass by a cracked plaque in front of this stately Victorian mansion. It marks that Dr. Clooney Macpherson, inventor of the gas mask, once called this St. John's residence home. So what's Macpherson's story? And did he really invent the gas mask? The answer lies here, tucked away in the provincial archives. A creation that would save more than 1 million lives and change the course of the First World War. This is the hypo helmet, and we wouldn't have the gas mask without it.
More than anything, it's a prototype. So this is him deciding, okay, how can I make that helmet, and what materials am I going to use it? And then figuring out, oh, this is not working, and then going to another one. So we actually have 3 or 4 of these prototypes.
Let's journey back to April 22nd, 1915, near Ypres, Belgium. Germany has just unleashed a powerful new weapon, chlorine gas. It's swift, it's unpredictable, and it's absolutely brutal.
The chemical gas was terrifying. Soldiers had died on the battlefield. They were retching. Their eyes were bulging out. They were vomiting up liquid. They were dying in horrendous ways.
It forced troops up out of the trenches, breaking a stalemate, and the Allies weren't ready for it.
And this enormous gas cloud, 6 kilometers long, green, yellow tendrils pushing forward over the Allied lines, comes into contact with 2 French divisions and the Canadian division also in the line. And it causes panic and terror as the soldiers feel the gas burning out their lungs.
The Allies are making masks out of cloth, lint, tape, but they don't work. The race is on to create something stronger. Enter Dr. Clooney Macpherson. Macpherson was born in St. John's in March of 1879 to a prominent merchant family. He got his medical degree from McGill University in Montreal. He spent 2 years overseeing Battle Harbour Hospital in Labrador before starting his own practice in St. John's. But when war breaks out in the summer of 1914, Macpherson is pulled in a different direction. Newfoundland, we're a dominion. We get pulled into the conflict automatically. How prepared is Newfoundland for that conflict?
They weren't very prepared. We didn't have a standing army. We had no reserve forces. The only thing we could rely on at that time were the religious organizations that helped train young boys. And yes, they had some shooting capabilities as well, but they weren't necessarily any armed forces for the Dominion of Newfoundland.
First, Macpherson is tasked with vetting potential recruits, which he did at the CLB Armory in downtown St. John's. From here, soldiers headed to Pleasantville for further training. In the fall, Macpherson led the first contingent of Newfoundland Regiment soldiers as they paraded through the streets of St. John's. Crowds cheered as they boarded the ship that took them overseas, but Macpherson didn't join them. He had a job to do here at home. So how does Dr. Clooney Macpherson, a doctor with the Newfoundland Regiment, become a famed inventor? Macpherson died in 1966, but a few years before his death, he sat down for an interview with CBC.
I went overseas in 1915, yes.
And how did you become involved, and how did you evolve the gas helmet? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
That's a very long story.
Not long after the first gas attack, Macpherson was in Saint-Omer, France. It was meant to be a 2-day trip. That's when, over breakfast, he meets 2 scientists working on the gas mask project.
So getting up, they said, well, what are you doing today? I said, I'm trying to keep out of sight because I'll be sent back to base. Well, would you like to come down to the lycée with us, to the chemical lab? I said, yes, that'd be a very good place to go. And so I went down with them.
Macpherson tags along, runs errands with them, takes a trip to London to get canisters of chlorine gas for testing.
While I was waiting there that morning in London, I didn't think much of that German contraption, and I thought I could do something better. And I bought a length of Viella and some mica.
He's there when scientists test out a prototype, a face mask filled with cotton. It was a disaster. One volunteer gets gassed so badly, he's sent to hospital. But that all inspires Macpherson to jump in, offer up a design of his own, a protective hood that could be pulled over a person's head.
And I took this viola and mic out of my pocket and got a sheet of paper and cut out the design of the helmet and got the nurse to sew it up for me and put it back in my pocket.
Another volunteer gave it a go.
And after he was in there about 5 minutes, he came towards the door, pulling it off. And they all thought that he was smothering in it. And we had a job to convince him that we had him in chlorine 10 times stronger than the Germans could ever get it over. So when we convinced him of that, he hadn't smelt anything. Then everybody was excited.
From there, Macpherson gets a prompt reassignment. Head to London for the War Office and start work on mass producing his hypo helmet.
The remarkable thing is that they put me in charge of producing it, who knew nothing about army or ordnance or anything of the sort.
2.5 million hypo helmets are ultimately produced and sent to British and Canadian troops on the front lines. Macpherson's hypo helmet would be adapted to protect the wearer from additional chemical weapons, evolving into the P helmet, PH helmet, and PHG helmet. This expert says Macpherson's masks offered soldiers more than just a shield. They also boosted morale.
But it was an important device both to physically protect soldiers, but perhaps more importantly, to give them a sense that the army was looking out for them, that this specter of chemical agents could be protected against, and that they would not die like rats in a trench.
Macpherson was tasked with traveling around, teaching officers how to use a gas mask.
There's a photograph in the desk here that shows the Irish Fusiliers, I believe, being trained on how to use the gas mask in Gallipoli during the period that Clooney Macpherson was there. And there's a gentleman in the back here that certainly carries himself like I would imagine Clooney would. And this is the fellow here with the hands clasped behind his back.
So you think it's him?
I suspect, I can't say for sure, because I don't have any other information other than finding this photograph years ago.
So, is Macpherson the true inventor of the gas mask? Not really, but he played a vital role in a progression that protected soldiers fighting on the front lines.
He was the inventor of a gas mask, and I think that's an important distinction. I think what we can say about Dr. Macpherson is that he clearly understood the devastating effects of the gas clouds, and that the soldiers needed to be protected with a device. And his clearly intelligent, fertile mind came up with this hood, which was an important step in this evolution of protecting soldiers.
Some of the more interesting things that happen in life happen by chance. And so that's really how he gets involved. And I think a lot of soldiers owe them, their lives for coming up with a solution.
Ian Macpherson was a teenager when he learned of his grandfather's critical role in the Great War.
It was just not something that ever came up. It was not sort of generally talked about. I don't know that he made an effort not to talk about it. It really wasn't something, certainly within the family, which was made a major issue of.
He says his grandfather was more boisterous about his legacy as a community doctor.
But I think he will be remembered for the gas mask. Yeah.
Not a bad legacy to have.
Not at all.
Macpherson was made a companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George for his invention.
So this cracked plaque doesn't quite tell the whole story of one Newfoundland doctor's place in history, and how a chance meeting overseas, over breakfast, inspired a life-saving device that offered the best protection to soldiers in the First World War.